score years ago, a great American in whose shadows time signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of glittering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end a long night of captivity. But 100 years later, we must face the tragic fact that Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly gripped by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society and finds himself an exile in his own land. So we have come here today to dramatize an appalling condition. In the sense that we have come to our nation's capital to cast a check. When the architect of our republic wrote the magnificent words of Constitution and Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall in. This note was a promise that all men would be guaranteed the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as the citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So we have come to cast this check. A check that will give us upon them the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hollow spot to remind America the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation into the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to open doors of opportunity to all of God's children. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice into the solid rock of brotherhood. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning.